11:30 a.m.
Yes. A.M. Yes. Ready?
Yeah. All right, we're on.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm. On.
Rolling?
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Baltimore. Patrick Henderson here from Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. And we are so excited to have as our guest, in her office no less, the head of the Baltimore health, she is the health commissioner of Baltimore, Dr. Lena Nguyen. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's really nice to see you. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much for allowing us to do this, and especially at this time. This is so time after what has just happened with the Trump care that is going down. So, but before I get into that, I got a few questions for you.
Sure. So we're not starting with the emotionally charged stuff yet. We'll get there.
Even more. You were born in California, Los Angeles?
No, I was born in China.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But I lived in LA
and you
for
moved when you were 7,
years.
I believe it says 6 or 7?
I was born in China, and my parents and I came to the U.S. on political asylum. We initially lived in Utah, and then we ended up in Los Angeles.
Wow, amazing. Political asylum. Wow, was it difficult for your family to get in? I hate to ask you these questions, but considering where we are now.
That's right. I mean, we were very lucky that we were granted asylum. My parents and my father in particular suffered a lot in China, was in jail, went through a lot of persecution. Wow. And I'm glad to have made America my home. It really is. I had so many dreams growing up, and I'm really lucky that I had the opportunity to fulfill them. The dream of becoming a doctor, of helping people,
and now a mother you're becoming. So,
I know you can't see as much, but it is.
Yes, I got it. Your father was a priest. He's a technology manager at the Chinese Daily News in Los Angeles. And your mother was a school teacher.
That's right. My father retired now, and my mother unfortunately has passed away. She died from breast cancer, actually, when she was quite young.
Really?
And her illness had a lot to do with why I followed the career path that I did, because I saw all the things that go wrong in medicine.
Yes.
And I thought, this is how I can make a difference. I mean, I know doctors and nurses want to do the right thing. It's not that they're bad people.
Right.
It's that especially when there are cultural factors and economic disparities, that there's a disconnect that happens. And so how can we bridge that disconnect?
That what inspiration that is, and how fortunate we are that you made this decision. Was your mom a Tiger mom?
Actually, no. My parents were, I think that, they were inspirations because of how much they did. And I saw how hard they worked. My parents were both professionals in China, but in the U.S., and I think this is a very typical story, they worked whatever odd jobs they could find. My father washed dishes in a restaurant, he delivered newspapers. My mother worked in a video store, she cleaned hotel rooms. I mean, this is what they had to do to survive and provide for our family. And it's through watching their hard work and sacrifice that inspires me every day in my work. And I think it also gives me a lot of perspective too, that when we have policies that are being debated or passed, I think about my family. I mean, I think about the fact that my father had a bleeding ulcer, and he would have died if he didn't have emergency surgery, if we didn't have Medicaid to pay for his surgery. I mean, these are the choices that people have to make every day, and it really is it's not about, we can't just talk about it as a choice when that choice is actually based on privilege.
Yes, and life and death.
That's right.
That's Oxford, a Rhodes Scholar, just a university, a California State University. Your resume is just amazing.
Thank you.
And your brilliant mind. Now I'm going to get right to the interview. In that, some people say, well, how will she know who we are? How will she be able to address the concerns of a predominantly black community? And my question was going to be what you answered it already. Have you felt a tinge of racism? Have you felt a tinge of being, and you just told us that you have. Your parents did whatever they had to do. And because of the cultural implications, you call them, but we know that is embedded in racism and xenophobia, you know, in America, which is very, a lot of people don't understand what xenophobia means, but it merely means a dislike for other people, for other cultures, and ethnocentrism, where people, my ethnic group is the superior. So you felt that. So when people say to you that you don't understand the plight of the people here in Baltimore, what is your response after just hearing what you said? I think I would like for you to address it directly.
I would say you're right. I don't understand. I don't know what it's like to grow up as an African American person in Baltimore, because I didn't grow up as one. And so it would be disingenuous for me to say, oh, I get where you're coming from, right? Because I don't. I can only say, here's my experience, and this is what I lived through. And I've seen a lot of different sides of this. My family and I initially moved to Utah, to a little town in the mountains of Utah, where there was no diversity, where we were the diversity of our town. And we saw people who didn't understand, and so may have had racist attitudes because they just didn't understand. But we also had a lot of people who were very kind. I mean, we were so poor, and we lived in the mountains where it was cold all the time. People gave us blankets, people gave us winter coats and boots, and I mean, people were so kind that, I mean, I came to the U.S. not speaking a word of English. And my classmates and teachers showed me how to learn and helped me instead of making fun of me. But I also saw other instances too. My father, when we first moved to Los Angeles, was beaten up because people thought that it was a racist crime, where people thought that he was Korean, and there was a problem against Koreans in that area at the time. And he was beaten up because he couldn't speak English to explain what it was, and he got beaten up because of how he looked. And my family, we lived in some pretty rough areas in LA where my classmates also were the victims of gun violence, where I saw addiction and mental health problems all around us, where people went to jail because they actually have addiction or mental health issues. They have a disease, but they went to jail for that. I saw poverty kill people every day. I saw what happens when people wait to get their diabetes checked because they can't pay for their medications. They can't pay for their preventive checks. They have to wait until they get kidney failure to get medical care. And at that time, they can file for medical care. I mean, how wrong is that system? Or you can go and get treatment when you have a heart attack, but what could we do to prevent that heart attack, and we can't pay for that? I mean, that's my experience. And so when you ask the question of, do I understand? I can't pretend that I understand what it's like to grow up in Baltimore City as a black person, because I don't.
You can tell me how it is that Chinese face some of the same issues.
That's right. And I can tell you. That's right. And I can tell you about the same struggles,
similar
struggles
that I faced growing up in poverty, growing up with violence and trauma all around me, and it's a different experience, but I think it's part of our shared identity.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for saying that, because I knew that was something that people would say, well, why don't you ask her about this and ask her about that? But thank you so much for being so candid and open and the truth about it. You worked for a number of years in Boston. You worked at a general sort of public hospital, and you worked in the trauma center. What did you see? Was it similar to what's happening here in Baltimore? Were there similarities, because that there are urban areas of Boston too? And Boston is really not a bastion of liberals. People might think it is, but Boston has a very bad track record of racism and the way they treated black people. So when you were working in those emergency rooms, what did you see, and how did that prepare you for the trauma that so many people in the city face, as well as a doctor?
I'm lucky too that I had the opportunity to get my medical training in different places and to work in different places. I went to medical school in St. Louis, which also has everywhere really has a long history of structural racism and inequities. Boston does too. I then worked in DC before coming here, and it's very similar stories in that you have profound disparities depending on geography, where a child born today in Baltimore can expect to live 20 years less or 20 years more depending on what neighborhood they grew up in. Same thing in St. Louis. Same thing in DC and Boston and really throughout our country, where there are huge disparities based on race, huge disparities based on socioeconomic status. I mean, this is what we see everywhere. I also saw working in the ER what happens when people do not get medical care. I saw what happens when people have to make these very difficult choices that nobody should have to make. I remember this young man I saw who stopped taking his seizure medications because they costed him almost $1,000 a month just for the medications. And if he got insurance, he would have to pay several $1,000s, like $3,000 a month for insurance because he had a pre-existing condition.
Which meant that he really couldn't get medical care. And he had to choose between paying for his pills or paying for food for his family.
And I think like many people, he chose to pay for his family. But the consequence of that was that he had a seizure that we couldn't stop. And then he ended up in a coma and never came out of the coma.
He was in his 20s at the time,
leaving behind two children. But that's what we see. That's the reality. And so whenever I hear people now talk about the politics of things and the politics of whatever care, Trump care, Obamacare, whatever, it makes me really mad because this is not about politics. This is about people dying. It's about people's lives. That's what we have to remember at the end of the day.
You went to Harvard, and I just can't believe all these incredible schools and stuff. You graduated summa cum laude, and you ended up a Rhodes Scholar. And then you married a South African.
I did.
Yes.
When I read that, I went, this would really be interesting. Because knowing where he came from, there was an apartheid system. But he obviously, when he met you, he just fell in love. He didn't see ethnicity, he didn't see anything. And you've been married for a number of years, about to have your first baby.
I know. It'll be an interesting experience.
He was obviously not aligned with the thinking of the apartheid system of South Africa. Was his awareness and what he had been through, was that beneficial to you as a sociologist? I'm going to call you a sociologist because a doctor's a sociologist. They have to be because of the implications of knowing people and cultures.
As a journalist, you've got to be a sociologist as
well.
Yeah,
that's my name.
Study people.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And I was just wondering, is he your partner in crime? Is he your partner in undergirding and encouraging to you? I think this might sound a little personal, but you seem so home to me. You just smile and just with you, and just my mom said I have a spirit of discernment, but I sense love and I sense care from you. And I'm not religious, but I sense the heart of God, the God of great possibilities in you. And so I'm honored to be talking to you. And I noticed that you were appointed by a former mayor, Stephanie Blake, to serve as health commissioner. You oversee the Department of Health, and your agency has 1,100 employees and a budget of $130 million annually. Is that enough money?
It is not nearly enough. This is the struggle that we have in public health, that there is no face of prevention. There's the face of something bad that happened, but what about the face of something that didn't happen? So let's take gunshot wounds. You can think of someone who was shot and killed, but what about the face of someone who was not shot because of conflict mediation that occurred?
Or somebody who was not shot because they had opportunities to thrive
that somebody else may not have had. But what about, you can think about someone who got sick from a restaurant, but what about the face of someone who could have gotten poisoned in a restaurant but didn't get food poisoning because we do restaurant inspections? Or a child who was lead poisoned, you have the face of that person, but what about the face of the child who could have gotten lead poisoned but didn't because of the inspections that we did in their home? I mean, that's the work that public health does every day. And we fight this all the time, every single time when it comes to budget season, on every level, city, state, federal budgets. public health is always that thing that people don't think about until something bad happens. But we need to make the case all the time that an investment in our children is the most important thing. And that prevention actually saves a lot more money down the line. Isn't it much better for us to prevent someone from getting diabetes rather than to spend all that money to do leg amputations and to treat them when they're in a coma in the ER? I mean, this is what we should be choosing to do instead. It's more cost effective and ultimately it saves lives.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. That prevention, that mom used to say, an ounce of prevention with a pound of care. I notice here that your expertise in so many subjects. The first one I wanted to talk about was, I was surprised to learn that your responsibilities include acute communicable diseases, animal control. Is that rabies?
It's also care for our most vulnerable animals. Yeah, so every year we receive over 20,000 calls for service for animals. So animals that are abused, that are neglected. Our staff have had to break up dogfighting rings and cases of extreme cruelty to animals. And studies have actually shown too that there is a close tie between animal violence and violence against humans.
Yes. Normally a person that will hurt a cat will hurt an animal. There's some underlying latent tendencies that we should be aware of.
Actually, that's something that you were talking about my husband earlier, something that I learned a lot from him too. My partner in crime, if you will, though crime doesn't sound quite so good, but partner in life. He's a wonderful person, very loving person, also very loving towards animals, and he is someone that I consult with every day as we care for humans and animals in our city.
Also, disease prevention, which you spoke of, emergency preparedness, food service inspection, but the one that got me, and I want to speak to you about, is HIV and AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes.
Where does Baltimore stand in the nation as far as HIV and AIDS infection?
Unfortunately, Baltimore has been hit hard by the HIV epidemic, just like other urban cities across the country. There was a big problem also before with HIV, especially in our injection drug users. And HIV has so long been something that's so stigmatized that people will look at it as a choice rather than as a disease. Same thing for dealing with addiction and mental health. People see it as a choice instead of as a disease that it is our moral responsibility to treat. We have made a lot of progress though, because we were one of the first jurisdictions in the country to start needle exchange. The percentage of people with HIV from IV drug use has dropped from 63% in 2000 to about now it's 7% in 2014, and so in 2014, 2015, and so it's quite incredible that the numbers have dropped so much. The populations that we still must continue to work with are really everyone, because everyone is at risk for HIV.
We in particular need to encourage everyone to get tested
to prevent HIV from spreading. 1 in 5 people who have HIV in the city don't know that they have it, and very importantly, we also have to treat it and reduce stigma and provide education.
People can live with it. They can live their own lives with it.
Chronic disease,
Yes.
just like other just like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, chronic disease.
But I have this idea, and it's not an idea because I see it. There is a stigma attached to men having sex with women.
Yes.
And our city jail, downtown, what do you call it, the correction,
Central booking.
Central
processing.
those people are there for 5 or 6 months, and you got men with men. They would never admit that they had sex with another guy. But men and boys are going to be boys, and they're going to do what they're going to do. Why have they not put condoms in the city jail? Because I contend that is what is infecting so many of our women. Because the guys come out and have had sex with guys who had the virus. They didn't know they had the virus, and they come out and they get all He-Man again, and they go and have unprotected sex with their girls. I contend that is one of the biggest spreaders of this disease. What are your feelings and what are your thoughts on that?
You're right that one of the most vulnerable populations in our city is men who have sex with men and transgender people. Because of the stigma, because of the misunderstanding, because of years of misunderstanding and around us as well. In fact, the lifetime incidence of contracting HIV for people in that group of African American men who have sex with men and transgender people is 1 in 2. Which is very high, and especially when we have a situation where many people who have HIV
don't know that they have it. People could be spreading it without their partners knowing, and also without the societal understanding of what we have to do. And this is why we have programs here working with our state and federal partners at the state health department, at our centers for disease control and prevention nationally, to specifically reach these populations, and the people that we hire to reach them are in the populations themselves. So we hire many people who are from the communities that we serve because they are the most credible messengers.
Also know where to reach that message. And so I would encourage everyone listening and watching to visit our website at health.baltimore.gov
and look up also Project Presence in Baltimore in Conversation, because those are 2 specific programs that we have in particular for the population.
But you answered my question, but there's one question that we didn't answer. Should there be condoms in the city jail? Should they have dispensers? Should they put them under their tables if the guys are ashamed to get them? Because I contend that that's the host. This is where all of this, our women, I'm thinking of the women who don't know. And your guys are coming out, and a lot of them like the thugs. I'm just going to tell you what it is. And those thugs are down low. In other words, they're having sex with men, and they're not telling anybody because of the stigma that's attached to it, and because they don't consider themselves gay. Would you sponsor, would you put on your lips to the authorities that the city jail is a place that we need to be more mindful of, and to put condoms in here? Because we can think all day long that men don't do it, it's just not true.
Can we do this? I'm going to make a note of it, and I'm actually going to make a note of it now, to look into it.
Because I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. If this is something that is
already being done or something that's been looked at before. I don't know. I never make any promises that I cannot keep. So I will promise to look into it. And I also will never want to make promises to do something unless I have fully studied the issue. Because I want to understand what's been done before. If it's been done before and now it's not being done, why is that the case? Or if it hasn't been done, is it a matter of cost? In which case we will figure it out.
Or is it a matter of stigma? In which case we'll figure it out.
Or is there something else that I'm just not thinking about? But I want to study it, and I promise that I will put this on my list and I will look into it.
Commissioner of Health, so I really think I've got to wind up. One other thing, and I'm going to leave. You're also maternal health, child health care, senior services, and youth violence issues. This takes me directly to lead poisoning. I read an article from the Baltimore Sun that 40% of all of the young people brought in there have mental issues into the correction system there. And I contend that what we're seeing in Baltimore is not normal, that the lead in these kids is eating away at their brain. You know, I don't know if you're into art, but Caravaggio, one of the greatest artists that ever lived, they found out that he didn't get killed by somebody. He was a terrible, mean man who beat up people and killed people, but he had lead. Beethoven died of lead because his brain was mean, irascible, the same thing that we see these young kids going through. And I'm not going to hold you so much to know what is your thing, because I'm working at a school and all these signs around the school where the kids can't drink out of the water. And that doesn't seem to be the state. Nobody's really saying, we've got to get these pipes out of here, we've got to search these houses and get this lead. It is genocide. Now, I hate to say it's a collective genocide, but it is genocide nonetheless. And I want to know what your feelings are, and do you feel as though that it is being addressed as importantly as it should, considering the implications of it?
We have actually done a lot around lead poisoning in the city, and I think it's important for us to talk about the why lead poisoning is so dangerous for our children, and also talk about what's already being done.
Because those come hand in hand,
right? We have to talk about the problem, but then we have to talk about the solutions and what's worked and what still needs to be done. You're 100% right that lead poisoning is a big issue, particularly when it comes to our children, because lead accumulates in the developing brain and it causes long-term irreversible damage. It results in children who have reduced ability to learn in school.
It also has been shown to increase
violent behavior later. And again, it's a question of, it's like children who are canaries in a
something about the houses that they live in, which is actually a big problem.
It should not be that. It should be backwards. It should not be waiting until children have problems and then we look at it. And then we look at it.
I do want to say though that we have made a lot of progress in the city. So unlike in Flint, Michigan,
where there were all these issues with lead poisoning recently, their lead poisoning was from the public pipes that were leaching lead. Our public pipes do not have lead. So that is not our major concern in the city. Private pipes in people's homes may still have lead.
And public schools still have.
That is a much longer conversation because it's my understanding that the decision was made to have the water supply in schools or have water bottles and private supplies in schools to be absolutely on the safe side, which is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, to be absolutely on the safe side out of an abundance of caution. There is an issue though in our city. Our major issue is with lead in houses, lead in peeling paint, lead that kids may be exposed to because there's dust and paint, and unfortunately we're not picking it up until after kids are lead poisoned. But we've made a lot of progress. The percentage of kids who are lead poisoned with a lead level over 10, which is what the CDC considers to be a very dangerous level, that number of children has decreased by 95% in the last 15 years. Even one child, though, with lead poisoning is still one child too many.
Those that get around and then they don't get it. I have to tell you this because I work in public schools, and I have seen some of the teachers use water in the bottles. If the kid's not acting right and they want water, they say, no, I'm not giving you can't have water. And that's what I don't like. Because when the child says I'm thirsty, I can't deny it. I'll cry when I see it happen. And so I'm going to get this.
I have to go and talk about figure out what we should do with all the issues with federal funding.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we didn't get to talk about that.
With the Affordable Care Act, absolutely. Thank you.
And for doing this, and I'm sure Baltimore City is going to be really happy to not only talk to you from a very candid, but that you're so honest that we got to see you from a perspective that maybe we have not before. So thank you on behalf of Patrick Henderson's Meet the People and Radio 1. Dr. Wynn, thank you. Thank you. Have a beautiful, healthy day.
Nice to talk to you, and thank you very much.
Listen up. Join us on Monday at 11:30 on WLB 1010 and hear all about it. Have a great weekend. Patrick Henderson, WLB 1010. Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Bye, y'all.
All right, wonderful.
Thank you so much.